Chapter 5. 24 hours earlier, Suuz quickly forced down a late lunch and pulled her red cashmere jumper over her head. Then she struggled into her heavily padded winter coat. She wondered for the 100th time why she was even still doing this. Elin and Britt were her best friends. They had known each other since nursery school and met at least once a month. Now that Elin's parents had left for a long journey to the south, it was the perfect opportunity to properly catch up again. Her parents were traveling with her two brothers along the western coastline, visiting the influential smaller houses before slowly making their way down towards the southeast. Elin jokingly called it the Agathos Toff Tour. For Kamran, it's mostly a chance to spot wealthy girls who might win Mum's approval, Elin had said cynically about her brother's involvement. Honestly, Suuz, you have to come. I'm lonely. Britt is coming too, and she's bringing that new nail polish brand, and homemade avocado face masks. Oh, I can hardly wait, Suuz had replied teasingly that morning. Elin had laughed, but Suuz had felt no joy. She had not been looking forward to it, but she had not dreaded it either. She felt numb. Every now and then, emotions still returned like waves. A flicker of nostalgia when she looked at an old photograph, even a brief moment of embarrassment when she had run into Maddox again. She had tried her best to be kind to him. He had suggested they do something together that evening. Just as very good friends. Sorry, she had said. I'm having a girls' night with my friends. He had looked hurt again. The guilt she had felt for a brief moment disappeared almost immediately. Over the past few days, she had never been so focused on her studies. She had already completed 2 exams, and she was due to hand in an essay the following week. Suuz had always been a good student. Studying had always come easily to her. But she had also always been easily distracted. Not anymore. She felt a small ache. Loss? She was probably missing her old self. It will come back, she whispered to herself as she closed the door of her student accommodation behind her and walked down the stairs towards the underground car park. Her hyper-modern motorbike was waiting there, a streamlined 2-wheeler for summer use, but with the press of a button, 2 narrow support wheels extended from either side, and the rear wheel transformed into a wide track. Within seconds, the road bike became a snow vehicle, designed for the long, freezing winters of northern Tehran. It had been a gift from Suri. When their grandmother had been buried and the crowds had finally left the estate, Suri had been left behind alone. Suuz had found that heartbreaking. She had told her parents that they needed to clear their schedules and make more time to invite Aunt Suri over. They had listened. Her parents had called Suri and asked her to come and stay for a few days, making a few adjustments to their busy schedules to make it possible. But in the end, it had mostly been Charlotte and Suuz who had spent those days with their aunt. And Suri had clearly loved it, although she had not stopped complaining about the bitter and barbaric circumstances in which her dear nieces were forced to grow up. How awful! So you spend all your time in private taxis or heated shuttle buses. Honestly, unbelievable. What a dull existence. When Suri returned home, she called the following day. She had signed Suuz and Charlotte up for an intensive motorbike course. If they passed, there would be a surprise waiting for them. The girls had turned out to be quick learners. Their mother had hated the idea, but their father had been immediately enthusiastic. Last month, the sisters had passed their motorbike tests on the same day. The press had found out. Vendette heirs soon to be seen on powerful motorbikes. Suuz had thought it was an awful headline, but she had been proud, and she had screamed when, a few days later, she saw the brand new bikes. 2 of them, one for her, one for Charlotte. It must have cost Suri a small fortune. There had been a card attached. My dears, so your lives become slightly less boring in dull little skirt. Grandma always wanted me to spend the family inheritance wisely. This seemed like a fitting gesture in her memory. Enjoy. Love. Suri. Suuz swung her leg over the motorbike, put on her helmet, and rode away. Normally, being on the bike made her feel free, confident, sometimes even a little bit sexy. She could barely remember what that felt like anymore. Now, she felt nothing. With a calm, calculated riding style, she made her way towards Agathos' house. When she arrived, she put on her best smile. Before she had even fully stepped off the bike, she took a shot of the local drink, strong skirt. Maybe it would help. Maybe a little alcohol would make her seem more like herself again. She slowly walked towards the front door. Maybe she just needed to tell them what was happening to her. By now, she knew it was real, or at least that it had once been real. Powerful Fae did indeed enter a transition around the age of 22 or 23. Eventually, she had found the answer in a book. Of all places, in her own family's library. At first, she had spent hours searching online. Eventually, she had found the title of an old reference book about the Fae. Then she had gone to her parents' private library and discovered that her family simply owned a copy. The book itself had been surprisingly thin. Gozar, also known as The Transition. The Gozar is an exceptionally rare physiological and magical transition that occurs exclusively in pureblood Fae and exceptionally powerful half-Fae. During this transition, both the body and the gift undergo significant changes. The first symptoms generally include emotional dulling, reduced empathic responses, and a temporary inability to experience strong emotions. This stage usually lasts several months, after which magical development accelerates. Historical sources describe the Gozar as a necessary, but potentially dangerous, part of reaching adulthood. Without guidance, young Fae undergoing this period risked losing their gift, suffering permanent psychological damage, or death. The last fully documented case of Gozar was recorded approximately 180 years ago. Since then, the phenomenon has been considered extinct or legendary by many modern researchers. "Suuz, darling, come in." Brit had thrown open the door with a laugh. Her friend waved her perfectly painted nails in front of Suze's face. "Welcome to Madame Brit's Nail Wonder Studio. What colour shall we do today?" Suze laughed, although it was slightly forced. "Give me a cocktail first, something or other." "That's my girl," Ellen called from the kitchen table. Her fingers rested beneath a small illuminated nail lamp, and she wore a wide grin. "Self-service. I'd like a margarita with extra lime, fresh strawberries, and a sugar rim. And make it strong, please." Suze looked at her friends and smiled. She knew this was the moment when she would normally have been genuinely happy. An evening with Brit and Elin, laughing, drinking, talking nonsense. She used to look forward to this. While she expertly prepared the cocktails in the kitchen, Suze made a decision. She placed the drinks in front of them one by one. Then she looked at them seriously. "Girls, I'm going through the menopause." Brit had just taken a sip and immediately choked. "Girl, are you having hot flushes?" she asked, coughing as she put her glass down. "Be serious. That's impossible. You're just stressed about your exams." Elin stared at her. "What the fuck kind of conversation is this?" "It's called Gozar," Suze continued calmly. "It's also known as the transition." "I've heard of that," Brit said, nodding. "From my grandmother. But that doesn't happen anymore, does it? Weak blood and all that, you know. We're basically more human nowadays." Suze looked at her calmly. "Well, surprise, I have it." The room went silent, and then Suze told them everything, even about the strange dream she had experienced. "Maybe that can be explained too," she said. "Maybe my brain was simply searching in my subconscious for a reason why I wasn't feeling anything anymore. Although, deep down, she knew there was something more behind it." "Shit," Brit said softly. "So you're not happy anymore, or angry?" She hesitated for a moment. "Not even turned on?" "Shh, Brit," Elin said. "No, seriously," Brit said. "That's intense." She took a large sip of her cocktail. "Yes," Suze said. "It is. At least, I think it is." She shrugged. "It comes in waves sometimes. I think when something is really strong, shame, for example, or nostalgia, but happiness, or even lust, it's somewhere inside me, but I don't really experience it." "Oh, and it also said you can die from it." "Christ," Elin whispered. She stood up and walked over to Suze. "Suze, darling." She gave her a tight hug. Suze hugged her back and smiled cautiously. "It'll be all right," she said. "I just wanted to tell you so that, well, because maybe I'm just acting strange. I don't experience things in the same way anymore." She looked at Brit. "I want red, and you can do my toenails as well." Brit looked at Elin. Elin looked at Suze. "Okay," she said. "We're not going to make this dramatic tonight. but I swear, we're going to look into this, and we'll support you wherever you need us." The evening had carried on around her, and Suuz had simply let herself be swept along with it. At times, it felt as though she were underwater. Every now and then she would suddenly feel cold, only to be warm again moments later. Suuz picked at her little finger. Brit tapped her hand away. "Stop that, or they'll look awful." "Yes, sir." Suuz stared at the green jar of avocado cream again. She felt no disgust, but if she had been able to, she knew there would have been disgust. It smelled strange. After 2 cocktails, Elin had fully embraced the idea, and just like Brit, had generously smeared the stuff across her skin. Brit had adopted the soothing voice of a beauty specialist, enthusiastically explaining the benefits of natural proteins, skincare, and hydration. "Wow, it's amazing for your skin, prevents wrinkles, and apparently increases your desire as well." At that last part, she looked directly at Suuz, "which is important for everyone, and maybe it will open up whatever has been locked away." Suuz had replied dryly, "Have another drink." Elin had laughed and grabbed her backpack. She had dug around inside up to her elbow and triumphantly pulled out 2 joints. "We'll have to share these between the 3 of us, but I think it'll be enough for tonight." "Oh, lovely," said Brit. "So we're taking care of our skin and now you want to get us into drugs?" "Yes, because alcohol is obviously incredibly healthy," Elin had replied sarcastically. "It nourishes the soul," Brit had said. After that, they had all laughed, even Suuz, although hers had been slightly stiff and unnatural. Elin had looked at her sympathetically afterwards. "Oh, darling, it'll be all right." She had squeezed her arm gently. Suuz had smiled, dipped her finger into the avocado cream, and drawn a stripe across her cheek. Elin picked up her lighter and brought the joint to her mouth. Then the doorbell rang. Brit ran to the bedroom window and pressed her nose against the glass. "Put that joint away, Elin. I think there's a police officer at the door. 2, actually." "I'll get it." Brit hurried to the door. "Wait," Suuz called. "Put your dressing gown on first." Brit looked down at her fluorescent pink leopard print bra and matching underwear. "This is perfectly acceptable," she said with a wink. But she put on her dressing gown and ran downstairs. She pulled the door open in one swift movement. Meanwhile, Elin had lit the joint anyway. Typical Elin, Suuz thought. She took a deep drag and called out, "Who is it?" A moment later, Brit's voice echoed through the house. "An incredibly handsome man, accompanied by a policewoman," she called. "Did you arrange a party for us, Elin?" Elin laughed. "No," Elin shouted back. She looked at Suuz. "Suuz?" Suuz didn't answer immediately. She walked over to the tall mirror standing in the corner of the room and looked at herself. "I don't know," she called back. "Let me have a look." She studied her reflection. It was perhaps a little daring to appear like this, but really, what did it matter? The girls headed towards the hallway. Elin was slightly unsteady on her feet. She giggled. "A handsome one? We'll have to take a closer look," she whispered to Suuz. Suuz had not thought herself capable of feeling any kind of excitement anymore, but a faint flicker passed through her when she saw the man looking at her. And Brit was completely right. He was very attractive. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and well-built, with blue-grey eyes. His hair was damp from the snow, and combined with the stubble on his chin, it gave him a rugged appearance. The woman beside him was the very definition of sharpness and severity. The police officer had an intimidatingly neat hairstyle. She looked at the girls intensely and asked if they could come inside. Something was wrong. Suuz knew it immediately. The excitement from moments earlier disappeared almost instantly, replaced by something else. Was it panic? She wasn't sure, but she knew this was not good. She looked pointedly at Elin, and Elin let them in. The next 20 minutes passed as if she were a stranger watching someone else's life unfold. She never truly felt that this was happening to her. Her parents were dead? Impossible, absurd. But then they started talking about Charlotte, and stronger than ever before, a certainty took hold of her. Charlotte had been home that day. She had been streaming shows. There had been people there. Charlotte had fallen asleep on the sofa and woken up in time. Suuz saw brief flashes. Charlotte escaping through the basement window. She was gone. She was alive. Good.
She looked up. Ramin. His name was Ramin, wasn't it? He was looking at her. A handsome man. But Manon had asked her something. No, She wasn't going to wait until they contacted her. That was not in Charlotte's best interest. She would be there first thing in the morning, and until then she had to do everything she could to find her sister, and for that she needed her family. She needed Suri.